It is gorgeous out here at Wrightsville Beach this morning. I'm meteorologist Elisa Raffa. We're going to take you under the sea coming up next, why you're going to have to do your homework the next time you go fishing.
15, Fox 46 is taking you back to the beach with stories along our coast. Sharks and fish are some of the most colorful animals in the water along our beaches, but they're moving as our oceans warm. Fox 46 meteorologist Elisa Raffa is live at Wrightsville Beach with all of these shark tales. Good morning, Elisa. I'll tell you, I don't really like the sharks, but I know that they're important.
Absolutely. They're definitely important to our ecosystems in the oceans. And actually, yesterday, we were at a fishing pier just down the beach a little bit, and they were telling me that there was a hammerhead shark in the water right there. So we have lots of sharks in our waters here in the Carolinas. But fishermen told me on this trip that we took that they're having to keep up with a lot of changes, that you really have to do your homework in knowing limits to sizes, species, and seasons when it comes to fishing, because they change so often. A lot of these fishermen that they've been fishing since they were children for 50 years. They said that it's changed so much over the years with all the regulations, and the reason why those are put in place is to protect the fish. Now, our regulations now need to be updated because as our oceans warm, the fish are literally moving. They're packing up their bags and going somewhere else because the water is getting too warm for them. They're really dependent on those temperatures. So there are scientists in labs right here in North Carolina that are testing to see how these water temperatures impact the fish. Here's a shark expert.
It's also a grand experiment that we're trying to figure out exactly how changes in temperature, which coincide with changes in sea level, which coincide with changes in storminess, which coincides with ocean acidification. You know, all these things are co-occurring, can affect sharks in myriad ways that really opens up a lot of interesting questions.
Right, a lot of things happening at once, which makes the research really interesting. For sharks, the warming waters will actually leave them in North Carolina longer. First of all, we have 50 species of sharks. They're here all year round, even in the winter. But for those summer ones that kind of come up in May and then leave in the fall, well, their stay is getting longer because those ocean temperatures are warmer, so they're able to hang out even more. And Wyatt, as you were saying, they're very important to our ecosystems because they're a top predator, so they keep everything else in control. Not too many fish, not too many plants, just they keep that food chain in balance. And Wyatt?
Well, Lisa, I'm bringing in Amanda here with us now since we're talking all things science. I think one of the things that stands out to me about your report is not only did you speak to the scientists, but the fishermen and women who've been out there for decades, they noticed the changes too.
I was blown away, and I love seeing that science in real life because, yes, I spoke to the scientists and I spoke to the fishermen and the anglers on the pier, and they said the same exact thing. They said, you know, when I was a kid, I used to be able to fish everywhere, and now it's really a challenge to be able to find those fish. It's because they're moving because of the warming ocean temperatures, and it's also because of commercial overfishing, which is why a lot of these limits have been put in place. Ladies?
Yeah, I mean, Elisa, it's so fascinating. What do you have working on for us tonight?
Sharks are interesting, right? We love sharks. We had so much good stuff about sharks from this expert. We're going to talk about sharks again. And the way that we're going to talk about them tonight is why you should fear the ocean rip currents behind me much more than sharks. We're going to really dive into the science on why shark attacks are so rare. What is it about the shark that makes them really not want to be near people? And then we're going to talk about the rip current danger. It's actually high today here in North Carolina in the Wilmington area, and it's moderate tomorrow. So it is really a hazard that you need to be aware of as you head out for Memorial Day weekend. And Wyatt?
All right, Elisa Raffa, thank you so much.
And we have a beautiful morning here at Wrightsville Beach. I'm meteorologist Elisa Raffa. While we often fear the jaws of sharks, there's something else you should watch out for more this weekend. We'll talk about it next.
Well, it might be scary to think about, but sharks are in the waters here in the Carolinas. Fox 46's meteorologist Elisa Raffa is live at Wrightsville Beach this morning with what you need to be aware of when it comes to sharks and even rip currents. Good morning, Elisa. It looks like you've got a really tough live shot location this morning. I do not feel sorry for you.
It is gorgeous out here, just such a beautiful morning. But like you said, we often fear the teeth of those parajaws a little bit more, but it's actually rip currents that we really need to be knowledgeable about. Rip currents can happen on a sunny day or a stormy day, and they take more lives than any other beach hazard every year. One person has already died so far this year in North Carolina, and the summer season hasn't even really started yet. Now, people often think that the rip current sucks you under, but it actually doesn't. The current takes you straight out to sea. It's a current that breaks through sandbars and just goes straight out into the ocean. And that's why it could be tough to get out of sometimes, because your gut instinct is to swim back to the shore, back to the beach. But if that current is headed the opposite way, it's tough. So you need to swim parallel to the shore so you can get out of the rip current into the waves, and then you can safely swim out of it. Now, we have new models that the National Weather Service is able to use tides, wind, weather, and figure out what days are more likely for rip currents than others. We actually have a high rip current risk today. Now, again, we said we talk about sharks, so I'm going to let the shark expert do it.
Sharks are highly evolved. They have really good senses of smell. Some of them have really good senses of sight. They can detect electromagnetic fields. They can hear well, some species. So with all these cues, they're really looking for a very particular thing, and they're good at finding it.
Rare for these shark attacks because they know what they're looking for, and they know that they do not want a person, they want a fish. So they have these really good cues, and when you do have a shark encounter, it's because they are very skittish and can get easily spooked, so they just get a little bit confused. They're not really sure what's going on. The water may be cloudy, it's tough to see. So that's when you have those shark encounters. But definitely rip currents is what you need to keep your eyes out for, not those paraffins. Ladies?
Elisa, when I hear us talk about sharks, all I can think of is two notes done up with jaws, and, but I do know that they are really important to everything that happens out in the ocean.
And I will say, I asked the shark expert, Dr. Fodry, I asked him about Jaws, and he said that movie is actually what kind of spearheaded the decades of overfishing that we had, because the movie made us feel monsters in the sea, we don't need to worry about them, and that's what kind of sparked the big overfishing. So yeah, it does play into it, but they are important because they're those top predators, so they keep the rest of the ecosystem in check. You really need them. You'll find too many fish or too many plants or too many what have yous, the whole food chain gets thrown off when we don't have those sharks. And Wyatt?
All right, Elisa, I just have a quick question about rip currents, because you were saying that they are on the higher side this weekend. They do have that new forecast out from Wilmington that they have on their website. Do they have also any recommendations on ways to avoid these kind of rip currents?
Some of the experts that I spoke to said from a high vantage point is where you can see it a little bit better. So maybe check on the top of the sand dunes when you get to the beach. And what you want to look for is that calm between the breaking waves. It seems counterintuitive, right? You would think the calm spot is the safe place to be, but that's actually where those currents are going to take you out to sea. So just remember, the calm spot in the water, maybe that's not always the safest place, and it can happen on a sunny day like today. Ladies?
All right, Elisa Raffa reporting live from Wrightsville Beach. You've got another report coming up this evening. Great work out there to both you and Jenna Kurtz, our photojournalist, there on assignment.